Hello, my name is Andrew Thake. I'm a Divisional Director with Resourcing Tomorrow. Delighted to be joined today by Sonia Scarselli, who's an Executive Vice President at Endeavour Mining. Delighted to have you with us today, Sonia.
Hi, Andrew. Good morning. Very nice to see you, and I'm very delighted as well to be with you today.
Sonia, absolutely great to be interviewing you. Opening question. What are the significant barriers women still face in the mining industry today, and how are organisations such as Women in Mining or actually Endeavour Mining working to address them?
There are, to me, first of all, let's say there has been a lot of progress is done in the industry to really create an environment where women can progress their career and thrive. But there's still a lot of infrastructural barriers to career progression and proper development. And maybe it's a two main-fold. When I think about the mining workforce, we have the office-based people, but also we have people on the operation. And the type of challenges that they are faced by these two groups of people are quite different. If you are in the operation, you really find daily job and day-to-day barriers associated to just basic needs and infrastructure that can be on a site, on a mine site, that really can make the life of a woman a little bit more sustainable, but also fit for purpose. It's really basic needs that you will be surprised at what are the basic infrastructure missing, that of course the companies are taking an action on. But the biggest challenge that the women are facing, especially on more technical type of role or leadership role, is the clarity of career progression and clarity on development and mentorship program. Often there is not the same level of conversation that is done with women around stretching role, big roles, big opportunities that require a little bit more of working, being on a role out of the box. And those roles are not they're not then associated to proper mentoring and proper development. And it's a little bit of a twofold problem, and that's I recognize in a lot of people that I know, a lot of women that I know, where if the company does not provide a structured mentor program, then a mentor is assigned. Then also often my female peers or even my team members, they struggle to actually go and ask someone to become their mentor compared to a lot of my male peers and in general, my observation from various roles. So until that it is sort of broken with the proper infrastructure, with the proper programs that the company put an effort on, it's very hard to provide the same career development for women and for men. And then ultimately there is the unconscious bias that though has been removed quite a bit in many industries, and especially in the mining industry, the unconscious bias remain that those are very highly demanded jobs. They require a lot of traveling, they require a lot of days away from home, and there is always this feeling that a woman cannot do that because as other personal priorities, it does not allow to do that. I think it's a very negative narrative, but it does not support either women to be more bullish and to put their name forward on roles and big roles, as well as not providing the right support and guidance from the company itself. All of this creates what we see today. We actually see quite a large entry of females representative at the early stage in any given company, but then when they reach that middle level career, there is a stagnation and you see very few of them progressing. Historically, not much has been done, but I have to say both my previous company as well as Endeavour, and within institutions like Women in Mining, things are changing. So there has been provided a platform with Women in Mining, a very strong platform of mentoring, where you actually can, and it's mentoring and networking. You can meet other women that face the same challenges and share experience and get the sense of confidence and comfort that actually asking, putting the hand forward, getting guidance. You can do that. And now you have more and more example of women that have been successful on their career, and they can share the path and the trajectory that they have done. So that it becomes a soundboard, but creating that infrastructure with the soundboard, like Women in Mining is doing, is fundamental. And I did participate to a couple of their initiatives and panels and fireside chat, where you see so many young and bright, talented women that really are eager to understand what they can do differently to put themselves on the radar into a proper career path and development. Then there is the work done in the company, and Endeavour has launched a few initiatives, one really to better the condition on the mines for women. And this is a simple thing. So, but for example, we have a lot of women, they are early mothers. And so how the company support them to keep their job, but also being mothers when they have a role that is a shift based. So we are provided with a more specific type of task that allow them, even on a shift base, to actually re-enter home more frequently and take care of their young kids. And that's become important because then they don't have to choose between work and life. And then in the office, more office space type of employee, we have started some informal networking and coaching initiative. Is leader-led, and so people can sign up for finding a coach and a mentor, and it's leader-led. So we put our time back to the company to actually spend the time with the person interested that would like to benefit of that coaching and mentoring opportunity. I also find it important to create that space because it also builds what I call the sponsor environment, and sponsor is actually one of the most important tool that you can have in a company for development and progression. The sponsor to me is the person that talks about you when you're not in the room. And creating the space for people to build the network, the mentoring, and define their sponsor, it's really important. You need to do more of this if you really wanted to have the progression of females in the industry.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned about mentorship there, and just on specifically on what trends are you seeing among younger women entering the mining sector? How can the industry better support their ambitions? Say you've mentioned mentorship, but what else can the industry do?
It's a proper understanding and description of the career development, what is possible. It's often for young talent they enter. They enter without a clear view and pathway on what would it take to actually progress and build the capabilities in their career. So those specific development plan and career plan are not as strong, and they're not tailored to the need of the person. Not everyone has the same capabilities and the same strength, and the development plan are not often aimed to really enhance the already existing strength. So having something more fit for the person you have in front is important, but likewise, it's really created the platform for having this conversation. A lot of the discussion they are happening are still around what to do. Your next step, you need to do this role for 5 years. And for me, it's really, you really need that. I think everyone learn in a different way. So there is ability there that to progress much faster. But then the mentoring has to be part of the development program. It cannot be done on an ad hoc base, because when it's done ad hoc base, it doesn't add value. It has to be consistent and it has to be tailored. So as part of development, there has to be a portion of assigned mentorship, because then you can work with your mentor to identify what that development look for you and what you can gain out, but also help and support. Actually, I step back on this. When you enter in an industry and you enter in a new role, you come from, let's say you're early, is your first role or your early career. You come with more of a academic background. You don't really know what it is working into a company, and you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you can ask and what you should look at. Having that mentor at early stage, it really helps you to focus more your attention, but also thinking out of the box on how you should think about your development. If I had a mentor my first couple of years of my career, I probably would have done slightly different things and a different path. I would have pushed for different type of role and different type of development. It didn't happen till many years after. And that's why to me it's really important, especially for the early enters, and especially for women. And they tend not to go and ask people advice very much. It's very important to have that formalized in a more strong and powerful way.
Thank you very much for that answer. Looking at the sort of industry as a whole, obviously you've recently joined Endeavour, and then previously you also at sort of BHP. What emerging technologies are proving the most transformative in improving efficiency, safety, and ESG performance in mining operations?
It's quite a large span of technologies, depending on which part of the value chain of mining. But performance, efficiency, definitely the utilization of AI, machine learning on large database really allows it to be much more focused on where we are carrying on our activity, make a decision faster, and be much more precise on where we want to spend our resources, which is really people and capital. They also allow to reduce the amount of footprint. So from an environmental point of view, if you can reduce that footprint and like testing, drilling or whatnot activities, you definitely are creating a better environment around yourself and a better relationship with the local communities. If you move forward to mining and processing facilities, anything that can start to leverage biox or bioorganic material to extract mineral on the processing facilities, reduce the amount of fluids that you need or chemical, implementing new technology on how you recover TSF, which are tailing. So there is a lot of work that is being done on that, because ultimately you want not just to improve the efficiency of your mine plan and have better recovery, reduce the footprint, but you also wanted to make sure that there is always an end of life of an asset. When you leave the asset, you have lived the environment where you operated in a sustainable way. And lastly, the piece of the ESG and technologies is also the type of activities that you're doing local with the local communities. So how you can think about your mine of the future. There's more and more collaboration and more support for local community. It's not an innovation per se, but it's a big shift on thinking mining in terms of not just the above ground and the below ground, but who is surrounding you. But ultimately, the biggest enabler come from big data. Of course, in the activity of tracking and moving material, the more investment is happening on renewable energy, the better it is. A lot of mines these days, including some of our mines in Africa, for example, using entirely a solar panel grid to run our facilities. You can't apply everywhere. We have the benefit of long sunny days, but you can certainly leverage other technologies, hydrothermal as well as wind, where you have different conditions. Those are definitely no-brainer. They needs to be applied globally.
How are mining companies such as Endeavour responding to investor and community pressure for transparency and decarbonisation across the value chain?
I mean, I think first of all, it is the right thing to do from an investment point of view to pressure and to require transparency. For us, it's really important to provide the transparency. So we have instituted, of course, we have our ESG team, but we have instituted as well a foundation to look at external activities, support the startup, local community, and provide a full transparency on how we are investing and where we are investing. We benefit actually through our ESG program to build a long-term strategy with the local communities. The pressure of investors is rightly paced, but I think for us, what it brings is the value of investing more and more in the local community. Ultimately, we are guests on the land of someone else. And so building that transparent relationship with the locals and making them a part of the journey is absolutely important. So we have been building quite a bit on our ESG policies and the decarbonization, and put forward quite a strong, solid plan for the next 5 years. And if you look our new mine that we are building, we are on the feasibility study right now in Côte d'Ivoire, in our Assafou mine. The entire infrastructure, it is decarbonized, it is run by solar panel, is looking at alternative solution for tailing to actually provide that more environmentally friendly environment. So it is the right trend. We cannot do that just because the investor pressure.
One of my favorite questions I like to ask speakers at Resourcing Tomorrow is, what is the most influential book that you've read and why?
Oh my God, I have a long list. I'm an avid reader. I read an average of 30 books a year, and if I can, more. But look, one of can I choose two because they're slightly different. Yeah. Book number one for me is Play to Win of Roger Martin. I find it one of the most insightful books when you think about strategy. And it's not just what is a strategy, but it bringing together the why, the what, the how, and ultimately what you need to build. And it all ties back consistently on a loop. It really gives you the understanding and the foundation that to have a solid strategy, you need to build optionalities, then you can make a decision. And to me, the way you frame the concept of strategy and describe it, it's just mind-blowing in the sense of it's very applicable to everything you do. And I probably read the book 3-4 times. I listened several of the seminars and webinars, but I also gave the book as a gift to many, many people. The other one that I really enjoyed is a little bit less well-known, but is a Rebel Talent of Francesca Gino. Now, early on as a leader, I always been told as a leadership coaching that you need to develop your people in a way that they develop everything. You need to develop their weaknesses. If you don't develop their weaknesses, you don't create a very well-rounded people. What I like the book is that it take this concept and throw out of the window, in the sense of you build a team where you have people that bring in different strength and different capability. If you only focus on people weaknesses, and trying to make them their strength, you actually are not leveraging and emphasize and building on their existing strength. So you need to tailor the way you're developing your team members with their strength at heart, because that will overcome some of their weaknesses. But I really liked the book and the way it talks about different people, different personalities, and how you can develop a high-performing team members. So it's something that I tend to apply a lot. And when I think about my team members, I focus on what this person is really good and passionate about. And what I know, I cannot have this person doing that, because they're not going to like it. They're going to be bored. They're not going to be as enthusiastic. It's not their real strength. And it just gives a very different perspective on our thinking about talents.
And another question that I always enjoy answering, because we get some wonderful answers. How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
God, I have plenty. Look, I think failure, it's a learn. I honestly don't like too much use the word failure, because for me it's learning. And if you do exploration, you know you're going to have a lot of failures. Therefore, I call them you learned that that's not the right place to explore, so you move elsewhere. So for me, I had a very early in my VP career, I had within my first months on the role, that's where I had what I think a learning opportunity. And that's when I was vice president for exploration and appraisal for BHP Petroleum. And I've been a month in the role, and it was the tender round, the lease sale in the Gulf of Mexico. And normally the team, I grade what are the permits they like the most. There is all a big of intelligent work done behind around what you think other company will bid, what you think will be the successful win. So there was quite a lot of science behind. And at the end, we really wanted 10 blocks, and 2 of them more than anything else. And the team came with this prognosis that you should bid around 10 million on one and 15 million on the other one, because then we outbid any winner, any other company, and so on. Now, in the past couple of years, all the leases went for much smaller bids, like around 1.5 million, 2 million. But my team was really convinced that there would have been so much competition there. And I was a bit hesitant, because it was a big commitment, at my first commitment as my new role. And I didn't really spend enough time on reflecting on pro and cons. And I went with the big bid. And as you know, when you do these big bids in the Gulf of Mexico, then they are released, the number is released, and also the other numbers, what was the next closest bid is released. And when the bid came out, of course, we won the permit, but our bid was significantly higher, 1-digit higher than any other bid on these permits. And it was embarrassing in a way, because at the time my boss looked at me and was like, okay, we spent 25 million when we could have got those permits for 4 million. So it was an excessive expenditure. And again, I felt not great, because that was my first decision. And I was like, okay, I'm not starting very well with this decision here. Hopefully gets better. But I have to say, I learned a lot out of the experience, and what I really learned is asking the right question. How do I put myself on asking the right question and having the right people in the room to actually have those conversations? And how can, in the future, avoid the rush of the moment to make a half-baked decision? And that's really pay out for a future decision. I never became a conservative decision person, doesn't make decision, because that's not why you are in the job. But I really step back on making sure that I ask the right question. So then you never know for sure, but you can make a much better informed decision. I have many other to share, but this was quite embarrassing.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that, Sonia. On our interviews, we've had people who've done much more interesting, who've done much more worse failures than that, and the fact that you've learned from that and are now at your position in Endeavour is really, really great to hear. I'm delighted to have you with us today. Delighted to spend time with you today, and looking forward to seeing you at Resourcing tomorrow. That was Sonia Scarselli, Executive Vice President of Endeavour Mining.
Thank you so much, Andrew. See you at Resourcing tomorrow.